Good morning, Professor. My name is Sarita. Today I will be presenting my individual multimedia presentation on Huawei and its geopolitical challenges with the United States. Let's get started with the introduction to the company. Huawei is a Chinese multinational high-tech company. Its headquarters is in Shenzhen, China. It designs, develops, manufactures, and sells telecommunication equipment, consumer electronics, and smart devices. It was founded in 1987. It was the first company to develop large-scale 5G commercial deployment capabilities. In 2022, it entered into 5G applications, with the industry producing over 20,000 use cases. Since Huawei is a Chinese company, let's talk about US-China trade relations. The US trade with China is a very complex relationship. The trade between US and China grew drastically since China joined WTO 2 decades back. Despite the escalating tension between both the countries, the trade relationship between the two nations continues to be robust. The US imports more from China than from any other country. This trade has helped the United States in the form of lower consumer prices and higher profits for corporations. At the same time, there has been concern over national security issues of the US. US officials are concerned that US companies using Chinese technology could put US national security at risk. In addition to it, US is quite vocal and critical of labor and human rights violations in China. Due to these national security and human rights concerns, the United States has continuously increased the scope of sanctions imposed on Chinese companies and organizations, including Huawei. Let's talk about the timeline of US sanctions on Huawei. US-China relationships has reached its low in 2012 when US accused China of espionage allegations. Since 2012, some countries, including US, have grown suspicious that the Chinese government may be spying on customers through Huawei products. Therefore, US imposing sanctions on Huawei and other Chinese companies from time to time. In December 2017, under NDAA Act, the Defense Department is prohibited from acquiring specific telecommunications equipment or services from Huawei company. The NDAA imposes limitations on all executive branch agencies, preventing them from purchasing telecommunication equipment or services from Huawei in August 2018. It further put sanctions in 2019. The sanctions were imposed by the Commerce Department, and they put Huawei company in the entity list, which mandates the company to obtain approval from US government before purchasing American technology. In May 2020, to curb the foreign sales of semiconductor chips to Huawei, the Commerce Department significantly broadens the company's blacklisting in May 2020. In July 2021, the FCC finally plans to reimburse US carriers for removing Huawei equipment from their telecommunication networks. And this further escalated to November 2021 when President Joe Biden enacts the Secure Equipment Act, aiming to prohibit companies like Huawei from obtaining new equipment licenses from US regulators. Let's talk further about global market impact of tensions between US and China. The sanctions imposed on China can be a perfect example, can be said as a can be taken as a perfect example of trade barriers and tariffs. Geopolitical tensions between two countries like US and China led to the imposition of trade barriers, tariffs or export restrictions between countries. US was also uh, placing some regulatory changes to increase or decrease control on the international business. Of course, there were disruptions in the supply chain networks. The US multinational companies who were dependent on the China as their manufacturing hub were forced to change their supply chain network to the other South Asian countries like Bangladesh and India. There was a threat to the Huawei due to the emergence of new technology and companies. There were a lot of indigenous US companies that could enhance their technology while the Huawei was dealing with the sanctions. According to CNBC calculations, Huawei's net profit for 2022 amounted to 35.6 billion yuan, marking a 69% year-on-year decrease. This decline is more substantial than 54% annual decrease recorded in 2011. To wrap up, I will tell you what were the key takeaways from this presentation. So, geopolitical risk like US and China trade war portray risk on multinational companies like Huawei. There is a fierce competition between two giant companies for technological advancements, particularly in the area of semiconductors and AI. This also lead us to diversify our manufacturing hubs and diversification of supply chain networks. Since the US companies went under a lot of difficulty of due to the disruptions in the supply chain, they need to find the alternatives um, and they need to diversify the manufacturing hubs as well. There is a significant need for R&D process to stay in competition. Companies need to keep looking for cutting-edge technology to remain competitive. The challenges facing Huawei are expected to have an impact on its business in Europe and other developed markets. However, despite this, the company's survival is not at immediate risk. Its affordable and dependable equipment continues to be in demand and numerous countries, and its smartphone sales are experiencing significant growth. Thank you.